The moment Sarah Chen saw the first flakes fall against the floor-to-ceiling windows of Denver International Airport, she knew they were in trouble. "Mommy, look, snow!" 4-year-old Emma pressed her small hands against the cold glass, her breath fogging the window as she watched the white specks multiply into a swirling dance. What had started as a light dusting 20 minutes ago was rapidly transforming into something far more sinister. Sarah glanced at her phone. 6:47 p.m. Their flight to San Francisco had been delayed twice already, and the departure board flickered ominously as another wave of cancellations rippled across the screen. She tightened her grip on her leather briefcase, mentally calculating the meetings she'd miss, the deals that would stall, the disappointed faces of her board members. As CEO of a struggling tech startup, she couldn't afford these delays. Every hour counted. Every moment mattered. But as she looked down at Emma's eager face, illuminated by the glow of the airport lights, Sarah felt the familiar twist of guilt in her chest. When had she last really looked at her daughter? When had she last put Emma first instead of the endless parade of investors, deadlines, and quarterly reports? All flights are now canceled due to severe weather conditions, a voice crackled over the intercom. The airport will be closing temporarily. All passengers must proceed to the designated shelter areas on Concourse B. The announcement triggered immediate chaos. Hundreds of stranded travelers surged toward the information desks, voices rising in frustration and panic. Sarah pulled Emma close, shielding her from the crush of bodies. Her mind raced through options. Hotels would be fully booked. Rental cars were impossible in this weather. They were truly trapped. "Mommy, I'm scared," Emma whispered, burying her face in Sarah's designer coat. "It's okay, sweetheart. We'll be fine." But Sarah's voice lacked conviction. She hadn't been prepared for this. She was prepared for hostile takeovers and investor pitches, not survival situations with a 4-year-old. As they made their way toward Concourse B, Sarah noticed a man standing near a closed coffee shop, holding up a handmade cardboard sign. Unlike the other stranded passengers frantically calling hotels or arguing with airline staff, he stood calmly, almost peacefully, occasionally adjusting his sign to catch people's attention. The sign read, "Lost? Scared? I have snacks and good stories. All welcome." Sarah almost walked past, dismissing it as the gesture of someone with too much time on their hands. But Emma tugged at her sleeve. "Mommy, that man has snacks. I'm hungry." Sarah hesitated. Her instincts as both a CEO and a mother screamed caution. Don't talk to strangers. Stay alert. Protect what's yours. But something about the man's weathered face and kind eyes made her pause. He looked to be in his mid-40s, wearing a worn flannel shirt and jeans, with a duffel bag at his feet, and a young boy, perhaps 6 or 7, sitting beside him with a coloring book. The man noticed her staring and offered a gentle smile. "I'm Marcus," he said simply. "This is my son, Tyler. We're stuck here too, but I figured it might be less scary if we all stuck together, especially for the little ones." Sarah's walls were still up. "What's the catch?" Marcus laughed, a warm sound that somehow cut through the airport's cold fluorescent lighting. "No catch. Just a single dad who's learned that difficult times are easier with friends." He gestured to his duffel bag. "I've got granola bars, juice boxes, and Tyler's got enough coloring books to keep a small army entertained." Tyler looked up from his coloring book and waved shyly at Emma. "I like your sparkly shoes," he said. Emma's face brightened immediately. Within seconds, the two children were sitting together, Emma explaining in great detail the entire backstory of every glittery element on her sneakers. Sarah felt her defenses waver. She was exhausted, hungry, and out of her depth. "Sarah," she said, extending her hand. "And this is Emma. Nice to meet you both." Marcus shook her hand firmly. "The shelter area is going to be packed. I noticed there's a quieter space near gate 47. It's warmer, and there are more seats. Want to head over there together?" Sarah found herself nodding, following the stranger through the airport corridors while Emma chattered happily with Tyler about their favorite colors and cartoon characters. They settled into a row of seats near the darkened gate, and Marcus began distributing granola bars and juice boxes like a seasoned camp counselor. "So, what do you do, Sarah?" Marcus asked conversationally as the children munched contentedly. "I'm a CEO," Sarah said automatically, then caught herself. "Sorry, that sounded pretentious. I run a small tech company. We're developing educational software for children with learning disabilities." Marcus's eyes lit up with genuine interest. "That's incredible. My nephew has dyslexia. Good software made all the difference for him." For the first time in months, Sarah found herself talking about her work not as a pitch, not as a performance, but as a conversation. Marcus listened intently, asking thoughtful questions, sharing relevant experiences. It was disarming. Most people either glazed over or immediately tried to network when she mentioned her title. "What about you?" Sarah asked. I'm a contractor. Construction work, mostly renovations. He smiled at Tyler, who was showing Emma how to color inside the lines. It's just been me and Tyler for 3 years now. His mom passed away from cancer. I'm so sorry, Sarah said, and meant it. Marcus nodded, a shadow crossing his face. It was hard. Still is some days. But Tyler keeps me going. He's my whole world. Sarah thought about her own situation. Single mother by choice, though not by preference. Emma's father had walked away before she was born, unable to handle the responsibility. Sarah had built her company from the ground up while pregnant, had given birth, and been back to work within 3 weeks. Had built an empire on determination and sleepless nights. But had she built a life? The hours crept by. Outside, the snowstorm intensified, transforming the world beyond the windows into an impenetrable white void. Other stranded passengers drifted past, some stopping to join their small group when Marcus held up his sign again. By 10 p.m., they had accumulated a diverse collection of people, an elderly couple returning from their anniversary trip, a college student trying to get home for the holidays, a young woman traveling to her sister's wedding. Marcus seemed to have an infinite capacity for making people feel welcome. He shared what supplies he had, told stories that made everyone laugh, and somehow managed to turn a miserable situation into something resembling a community. But around midnight, things took a darker turn. Sarah had gotten up to throw away some trash when she overheard a heated conversation near the bathrooms. 2 men in business suits were talking in urgent, hushed tones. She wouldn't have paid attention, except she caught a fragment that made her blood run cold. The shipment needs to move tomorrow night, whether or not. We've already lost too much time. What about the kids at the facility? Someone's going to notice. Not if we're smart. The records are already altered. By the time anyone figures it out, we'll be gone. Sarah's heart hammered. She pressed herself against the wall, hidden behind a pillar, straining to hear more. The men's voices dropped lower, but she caught words that chilled her. Falsified documents, trafficking, vulnerable children, facility in Colorado Springs. When they finally walked away, Sarah stood frozen, her mind racing. Had she really just overheard something criminal? Or was she being paranoid, reading too much into a conversation she'd only half heard? She returned to their gate, her face pale. Marcus noticed immediately. You okay? You look like you've seen a ghost. Sarah pulled him aside, away from the children and the others. In whispered, urgent tones, she told him what she'd heard. She expected skepticism, maybe even dismissal. Instead, Marcus's expression turned deadly serious. Did you see what they looked like? One had silver hair, expensive watch. The other was younger, maybe 30, with a briefcase covered in airline stickers. Marcus's jaw tightened. I need to show you something. He pulled out his phone, scrolling through photos until he found what he was looking for. Is this one of them? Sarah stared at the screen. It was the silver-haired man, standing outside what looked like a children's facility. Yes, that's him. How did you... I'm not just a contractor, Sarah. I volunteer with an organization that investigates child trafficking. We've been tracking a network operating out of Denver for 6 months. That man is Leonard Voss. He runs what's supposed to be a licensed foster care facility, but we've had reports of children disappearing from the system. We just haven't been able to prove anything. Sarah felt dizzy. We have to call the police. With what evidence? A conversation you partially overheard? They'll disappear before anyone can act. Marcus ran his hand through his hair, thinking hard. But if we could get more information, something concrete. That's insane. We can't just investigate criminals in an airport. We have children to protect. Exactly. That's exactly why we have to do something. Marcus looked at Tyler, sleeping peacefully against Sarah's briefcase, then at Emma, curled up beside him. Those men are talking about kids just like ours. Kids who don't have anyone to protect them. Sarah wanted to argue, wanted to retreat into the safe, controlled world of boardrooms and business decisions. But something had shifted in her during these hours trapped in the airport. Marcus had shown her what it meant to care beyond yourself, to build community, to take responsibility for more than just your own success. What do you need me to do? Over the next hour, they formed a careful plan. Sarah would use her business credentials and commanding presence to approach Voss, pretending to be a potential investor interested in expanding foster care facilities. Marcus would work on getting close to the younger man, who was currently sitting alone at a bar that had remained open for stranded passengers. Sarah's hands shook as she approached Voss, but years of high-stakes business meetings had taught her how to project confidence, even when terrified. Excuse me, I couldn't help but overhear you mention a facility in Colorado Springs. I run an education technology company, and we're looking to partner with care facilities to provide our software. Voss's eyes narrowed with interest and suspicion. Is that so? For the next 20 minutes, Sarah engaged him in conversation, using every trick she knew to build rapport while subtly extracting information. Voss, flattered by attention from a successful CEO and emboldened by alcohol, began to boast about his operation. Sarah recorded everything on her phone, hidden in her jacket pocket. Meanwhile, Marcus had struck up a conversation with the younger man, bonding over the misery of being stranded. A few drinks in, the man started complaining about his boss, about having to move merchandise in dangerous weather, about the stress of keeping everything off the books. By 2 a.m., they had enough. Phone recordings, names, details about the facility's location, and even mention of a scheduled transfer the following evening. Marcus called his contacts at the organization he worked with, sending them everything. Within an hour, local FBI agents were coordinating with airport security. Sarah and Marcus returned to their gate, where the children still slept peacefully, unaware of the drama unfolding around them. The other stranded passengers in their small community dozed in various positions of airport seat discomfort. "You were incredible," Marcus said quietly. "That was brave." "I was terrified," Sarah admitted. "But you're right. Some things are more important than playing it safe." As dawn broke over the snow-covered landscape, the airport slowly rumbled back to life. The storm had passed, leaving behind a world transformed by white. Sarah watched Marcus help the elderly couple with their bags. Saw him high-five the college student. Noticed the way he ruffled Tyler's hair with such natural affection. Airport security quietly approached and led Voss and his associate away in handcuffs. Most passengers didn't even notice, focused on their own travel chaos. But Sarah and Marcus watched, knowing they had played a part in something significant. Later, as their respective flights were finally called, Sarah found herself reluctant to leave. Emma and Tyler had become fast friends, exchanging promises to video chat and see each other again. But it was Marcus that Sarah couldn't stop looking at. "Can I have your number?" she asked, then laughed at her own awkwardness. "That sounded like a line. I mean it. I'd like to stay in touch. Maybe our companies could work together. Maybe the kids could have playdates. Maybe we could have coffee sometime." Marcus finished, smiling. "Yeah, coffee would be good." They exchanged information, neither quite ready to walk away from the connection forged during those extraordinary hours. As Sarah finally boarded her flight, Emma drowsy in her arms, she realized something profound had shifted. For years, she'd built walls, convinced that vulnerability was weakness, that success meant doing everything alone, that protecting her daughter meant shielding her from the world. But Marcus had shown her something different. He'd shown her that strength could be soft, that leadership meant bringing people together, that protecting children sometimes meant standing up for all children, not just your own. 3 months later, Sarah sat in a coffee shop in San Francisco, across from Marcus, who had flown out with Tyler for the weekend. The investigation had led to the rescue of 17 children from Voss's facility and the dismantling of a trafficking network that had operated for years. Sarah and Marcus had testified, had stayed in contact with investigators, had seen justice served, but more importantly, they had stayed in contact with each other. The coffee dates had turned into video calls, which had turned into weekend visits, which had turned into something neither of them had been looking for, but both desperately needed. "I never thanked you properly," Sarah said, watching Emma and Tyler play together in the corner of the shop. "For that night at the airport, you changed everything for me." "We changed things together," Marcus corrected gently. "You were the brave one. I just held up a sign." Sarah shook her head. "That sign changed my life. Lost, scared, all welcome. I was so lost that night, Marcus. Lost in my own success. Lost in my own fear. You reminded me what matters. You showed me that building community is more important than building empires. That protecting others doesn't make you weak. And you showed me that strength comes in many forms," Marcus replied. "That single parents can be CEOs, that business leaders can be heroes, that the walls we build around ourselves are never as strong as the bridges we build to others." Outside, the San Francisco fog rolled in, soft and gray. But inside the coffee shop, surrounded by the laughter of children and the warmth of connection, Sarah felt nothing but clarity. The snowstorm had trapped them, yes, but it had also freed them from their own limitations, their own fears, their own isolation. Sometimes it takes being lost in a storm to find your way home. And sometimes home isn't a place at all, but the people who remind you who you really are and who you can become. Sarah reached across the table and took Marcus's hand, ready for whatever came next, knowing that together, with signs held high and hearts held open, they could weather any storm.